Hi, I'm Katie Stoddard, and I'm about to have a productive conversation with Mike Vardy.
Welcome to a productive conversation with Mike Vardy. I am joined by Katie Stoddard today, and she is the person behind the Focus Bee. She has a podcast, she has a blog, she's working on a book as of the time that we had this conversation. And we talk about a wide variety of things during this conversation, primarily around focus. We talk about precision, resilience, this idea of equanimity, many different things. It's always really cool to talk to someone who has a passion for productivity, and especially an element of productivity, and that's focus. And that's what we're going to focus on during this conversation. So here it is, my conversation with Katie Stoddard. Enjoy. Katie, thanks for joining me on the program today. So the T is silent, is it?
Yeah, Katie Stoddard. Yeah, you can say it or you can skip it. It works both ways.
Well, it's great to have you on the show. First off, the Focus Bee. It's anyone who's listened to my podcast for a while or follows my work knows that I have a bit of an obsession with hexagons. Actually, I've got a hexagon timer here. I've got a bunch of hexagon shaped things, and when I think of a bee, I immediately think of the honeycomb and the hexagon. Where is the term the Focus Bee come from? Like what was the impetus behind you going down that path with the naming of your business and of what you do?
I was really passionate about high performance and productivity in general, and I specifically loved focus. I believe, and we'll talk more about this, no doubt, the focus is sort of your superpower and it enables so many things in your life when you're able to focus. So I was reflecting a lot on this, and at the same time, I have a reluctance to this concept of being busy, this idea that we're busy in the busy world and busy bees. And so the idea of the focus bee came in contrast with being a busy bee. So I wanted to invite everyone to, instead of working and living as busy bees, to instead be a focused bee.
Well, and I think it's a bit of an interesting scenario that bees are very focused in a lot of ways. They each have their own roles, right? Like the worker bees do their thing, and I mean everyone has their roles. I'm not a fan of the word busy either. I mean, there's that term where it's like I'm busy. Look, we're all busy. That's basically what it boils down to. Let's get into this idea of focus. You had an interesting job before this, right? Before you dove into this, and I use the term dove with complete lack of understanding that was a pun as soon as I started like it. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I found that fascinating when I was doing research for our conversation, is where you got started, like what you were doing before, and then the shift to what you're doing now. What's the connect there? Share the story, and then what's the connection?
I first started as a hydrographic engineer, so I was mapping the seafloor, going off on vessels for 1 month at a time, spending a month at sea. That's where I met my husband, who would do maps of the seafloor. And it was fun and it was an adventure, and I got to travel and see northern lights and all this amazing stuff. But I wasn't that much into engineering per se or data processing. And it was actually when I discovered Myers-Briggs and I was going through the personality types. I'm a ENFP, ENFJ, so on the line, that I realized that there was a reason that I wasn't super fulfilled as a data processor, as a ENFJ, ENFP. And instead, I started to look at other options, such as more psychology oriented or coaching. And I discovered coaching and fell in love with it and changed. So even though there isn't a direct connection in many ways between being an engineer and being a leadership high performance coach, I do feel that my engineering background has helped me a lot in terms of so many business analytical skills, marketing, and even in the way I coach. Sometimes I feel I have a very scientific approach. So I've managed to make the best of both worlds.
One of the things that you wrote about on your blog is you talked about equanimity, and I always mess that up. Equanimity, yeah, equanimity.
Equanimity.
The idea of being calm in all circumstances, and again, this relates back to focus, right? And obviously, when you are trying to do, powerful, impactful things, and when you're trying to avoid being busy, let's face it. That is the antithesis of calm. So I want to talk about this because we don't talk about equanimity very much on the show. Um, First off, what is it for those that aren't quite sure? And also, how do you tap into it when you need it the most?
I love this topic. It's really nice to have a different approach, not just talk about how to manage distractions, although we could do that too, but I know you've covered it on the show already. Yes, equanimity, I think the way you described it, remaining calm in all circumstances, I like to see it as sort of river flowing through down a stream. And even if there are rocks or obstacles, the water continues to flow and doesn't get blocked. I recently discovered or rediscovered the term Wu Wei. Now, I haven't looked to check if that's the exact same thing, but it feels very similar. And the idea is to really just go with where life is sort of taking us. And this is hard to explain because I think people could misinterpret this or get confused and maybe think that this means not being proactive or just going with circumstances. So it's hard to really put into words. So to come back to your question of how can we apply equanimity in our life, I think it comes down to, well, the Stoic dichotomy of control and knowing what's out of your control, but then also managing your emotions in those moments. So having the emotional intelligence to deal with the tough emotions that arise or the resistance. I think it's a lot around accepting and letting go, especially when it's out of your control or it's something, yeah, that's sort of off somehow. So yes, I feel it really is linked to how we deal with resistance and how we can accept and let go again of things that are out of our control, for example.
So a lot of people really get into this idea of using apps. I actually talked to a friend of mine about this just before we hopped on our call today, and the idea of I want to know what app you use. I want to know all this stuff. And anyone who's listened to the show for a while knows that sometimes I'll ask what apps, but I don't want to go down that path. I want to talk about the softer skills, the skills that are, that are not, that are more approach based than application based. So you've talked about resilience on your podcast before. You've talked about it also in your work. Resilience and focus are, it's interesting to me because focus can be fleeting because it's hard to maintain it on a consistent basis, right? Especially because it's related to energy. So is resilience. Uh, what when you're thinking about the idea of being resilient, especially in the face of a to-do list that might be overwhelming, or as you mentioned earlier, the ability to be distracted by others at a higher level than maybe we've ever experienced before, either by others like that are directly in contact with each other, or the news or our phones or whatever. Um, how do you think focus and resilience work hand in hand to help you kind of get the things that you need and want to get done in a way that works for you?
Yeah, great question. There's definitely a link between focus and resilience. I think it comes down to what we choose to focus on, and that gives us the resilience. So, in the book that I'm writing, it's not yet published. I'm in between publishers and a lot of things, but I talk about this term selective focus. And the idea is what we choose to focus on at any given moment and what meaning we give to what we focus on. And this definitely builds resilience. For instance, if in a situation we're thinking about and focusing, therefore, on a certain obstacle, maybe a rejection of a client, for instance, then if we choose to change the way we interpret this point of focus and redefine this and, yeah, cognitive reframing and rethinking about it, and managing again our emotions in that moment, this helps to build resilience. So it's what we focus on and then how we choose to deal with both emotionally and in our thought patterns. So it's a combination of these thought patterns and emotions that build the resilience.
Okay, so this leads me to the question about managing focus, because again, I mean, obviously, focus is a huge part of attention, which is, I mean, I tend to talk about with productivity. Productivity is about intention and attention, but managing focus, to me, I guess, when I hear the term time management or managing time, it drives me nuts because time moves on whether we want it to or not, right? focus can be fleeting, right? It can be, but we've just talked about, like when you choose what to focus on, it can be galvanized by the amount of like your intent behind it, the intensity behind it, all that stuff. When you hear the phrase, "I need to manage my focus," what comes to mind?
I straight away think of Indistractable and Near AL and traction and distraction. So the first thing I think of, I see the graph in my head. I think traction, distraction. So when people say they want to manage their focus, I hear I want more traction and less distraction.
Yeah, and it's funny because that's the thing. And when I was talking to Near about this on a past episode, which we'll put in the show notes for sure, the thing that I think a lot of people got surprised by, myself included only because I don't think I thought about it that way, is that the opposite of distraction is traction. Okay, so with that in mind, what is the opposite of focus then? Because it may not be what we think it is, right? Like if we think the opposite of distraction is focus, right? Like, because that's what a lot of people think, or it's what is alluded to. Is the opposite of focus distraction, or is it something completely? It's something that we're not really putting our finger on? Like you're spending a lot of time, pun intended, focusing on this. So what in your mind, is there more than one, or is it like if there's one word, you're like, well, this is the direct opposite of focus? What would it be?
I think of scattered, and I think of the lens of the camera when it's focused and it's clear, and then unfocused and it's not clear. So I think of scattered, but in terms of lack of clarity. I feel when we're focused, there's an intention, like you spoke about, and there's a general clarity about the direction we're going in and what we want to focus on, because focus is a decision, whether it's a conscious or subconscious, it's a decision. And to have that decision and for it to be optimized, as in to be aligned with what matters most to you, there needs to be a clear intention. And for a clear intention to happen, there needs to be clarity. Therefore, clarity first. That's why you need that mental space, that reflection, the journaling, being coached, and all of that. And then from that clarity, setting the intention, goals, priorities, etc. And from that, you have your short-term daily focus. Therefore, I feel that the opposite of focus, if we look at the root, it's clarity. So the opposite of being focused is being scattered, where there is no clarity. Or if we want to use another term to scattered, maybe blurry in some way, or unclear.
Or hazy. Now, when I say hazy, now I'm like, it's too early for a hazy IPA. All right, let's dig into speaking of clarity. When you were doing your work beforehand, you were mapping the floor of the ocean. Precision mattered, right? Like it really did. I've been thinking a lot about prioritization. I've built a mini course around it. It's something we talk about inside of my membership, Time Crafting Trust, and it's in more of my work now than it has been in the past. And I believe the problem with prioritization is that people try to, and I know Greg McEwen talks about this in Essentialism. Merlin Mann's talked about this before as well. But, if you have more than one priority, then again, you're scattered. It's hazy. It's blurry. And I think that I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but I think that when it comes to prioritization, it's not about prioritization. It's about precision. It's about precision of, let's say, focus, right? As opposed to, because you can only really have one priority at a time. You can have many different, quote, priorities, but like anything else, if you try to deal with them all at once, the quality will suffer, right? So do you feel that the work that you were doing beforehand comes back to you when you start to think about things like focus and precision and clarity? I'd like to hear some of the kind of commonalities or the things that you maybe have drawn lines in comparison to with your former work, but also the thought about precision when it comes to focus, and how does one foster that?
Yes, I think precision is essential. I hadn't really, to be honest, made the link with my past career, but I can add it in. I can say that yes, it was indeed essential to have very precise measurements of the seafloor, and this ties to focus. I feel it was more the analytical way of thinking and scientific thinking that contributed in this case to my field. To come back to what you were saying, how can we sort of cultivate precision and how is it linked to focus? I feel it is extremely linked, as I was saying, because clarity matters so much.
Hmm.
And it's that famous thing of people procrastinate things that they aren't really specific about. I know that in my case, the two times I procrastinate most, either if it's really boring, but I've managed to overcome that. So I'm not that bad with that anymore. So the only times I ever procrastinate are if it's not clear. And this is exactly what you're saying. If it's not precise enough, and if you just pause for one moment, take a pen and paper and think, what am I really working on? What is it I want to achieve? How am I going to measure this? Then you get your focus. Then you get that one item that you can time block and you can work on. So there is a direct link. And again, it comes back also to intention. Once you have that clear, precise intention. And I feel this is a big reason why people struggle with focus. Yes, there's a whole traction, distraction for sure, but there's also the whole focus and hazy, because when you're not precise in what is it you want to do, towards which goal is it contributing, how are you going to measure it, and all of these questions, how is it going to make you feel, etc., 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 then how can you put your energy and your time and your mental effort and will in that one activity or direction?
You mentioned time blocking. So you time block, I take
Yes,
it.
yes,
Does
yes.
it work? Okay. So I'm going to ask it. It does work. I know time blocking works. And I obviously talk about theming your time and things like that. People who've listened to my podcast for a while know that, or know my work know that. But I'm going to ask a different question. So I'm going to ask, like, when does time blocking become a challenge or a struggle for you? Does it?
Well, I'm flexible with my time blocking. So, for example, when I'm doing, well, when they're calls, they're calls, so they're blocked. And when they're tasks, if sometimes it feels off energetically, I'll move it. But what I'm really clear on is what I want to achieve during the week. So I'm very flexible and I know how long tasks take. So let's say I've planned to write a blog article and I've planned it on a Tuesday morning, but then I suddenly feel inspired to work more on my book. I tend to not change my time blocking that much. But when I do, I just sort of shift things around. And this allows me to have that extra sort of margin of creativity and not feel things are too blocked. But as long as I'm super clear on my main outcomes for the week and I get it done within the week, I allow myself that space. So I don't feel it really does. I don't feel.
You found the sweet spot. See, that's an interesting, the way you brought up about the week, that to me makes it an interesting sweet spot, because I think a lot of people that I know struggle with time blocking. And again, it comes back to biases too. There's no question of, like, there's no way I don't have an agency over my time. We've both experienced that in the work that we do. But when you broaden it a bit, like you just said, like over the course of the week, I want this, these are my objectives. I think that makes time blocking more accessible to more people, right? Whereas I think a lot of people get caught up, and again, I'm generalizing here, but I think a lot of people get caught up in the, I need to time block my day, but that's not the core. I mean, time blocking is a universal strategy that you can apply to days, weeks, months even, right?
Yes, well, that's how I use time blocking. When I do a review of the week, I plan my next week. And while I'm planning my next week, I time block everything. And if I'm planning a month or 2 months for different activities, I have activities that I sort of plan regularly on a week to week basis. I have activities that I plan for every day, like my morning routine, it's set every day. And I have activities that I plan on a monthly basis, and I just put them all in and hope it fits.
It's like Tetris, right? I recently saw like an image on social media where it's like the task I want to do, and it was like it was the one shaped brick thing, and then the next image was like the end of the day, and that brick is like it's not even in the thing. I was going to ask you about a lot of people. I have gotten back into meditation again. I've had a on and off relationship with meditation, not because I don't believe it to be good. It's because it's one of those things that I kind of let slide. Journaling has been one that I have not let slide, and it's been a constant, and it has helped. It has helped me decompress. It has helped me course correct when I need to. It has helped me kind of wrap up my day because I use it for the end of the day stuff. So I want to talk about, and I want to get your thoughts on because you mentioned journaling a little bit earlier. What benefits do both journaling and meditation have on focus? And because I have heard, on both sides of the equation, both meditation and journaling, a hesitancy for people to adopt to it because they don't get that hit of dopamine. They don't get that instant gratification because it's like the difference, like you said, between writing a book and writing a blog post. The blog, or even to go further, the social media update. It's way easier to put something on Facebook or tweet something than it is to write a blog post, and you get that dopamine hit. Easier is maybe not the simpler. And then conversely, to work on a book, you're not going to get that instant gratification either because it's got to sit there, so you're not going to get that dopamine. And I think that the journaling and meditation play the same role, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on how they can help foster focus, even when you don't think it is working or when you don't see it right away.
Yes, absolutely. I'm a big fan of both. Meditation, for sure, it's the super tool to strengthen attention. I mean, there are others, of course, but meditation is very powerful. And I feel it just helps during the day when you have a meditation practice to raise that awareness when you're about to get distracted. You bring your thought backs and your ideas back to your current task because this is what you're practicing in meditation. So I start all of my days with 20 minutes meditation. It took me a while to build the habit of really doing it every single day. It took me 3 years, I think. I like to say that because I feel that people that are getting discouraged because they've fallen off the wagon, I want them to know that most people fall off the wagon before they stay on for longer.
and you don't have to make it like 20 minutes. Like that's the other thing.
No,
is like
no, it's true.
it's not like, you're trying to cram in 20 minutes. Like I meditated for 7 minutes this morning. Like that was what I did. And by the way, the last time I meditated, it was 5 minutes and they both felt exactly the same. Like one didn't feel longer than the other. So, I mean, there's that old story, and I'm sure you've heard it before, but the idea where the businessman goes to the Buddha or to the guru and says, you're a guru. Like I need to meditate. Like how long should I meditate every day? He goes, well, at least for 5 minutes a day. Well, no, I don't have time to do 5 minutes a day. Okay, well then 20. Right? Like it's that thing, like where if you're really scattered or hazy, or discombobulated, you need to do it more. Right. And it does not have to be done in my mind, in one sitting. I actually use meditation a couple ways. Number one, like you said, to kind of get myself centered again, but I also use them as transition points, like to start my day. And then I have another one when I'm, getting ready to transition into a deep writing. And then when I'm done my work day and I'm transitioning into like, it's time to do family stuff, that's when I do another one. So it can act in so many different ways. I mean, I assume you use it for a variety of reasons, but I mean, most people, meditation is not just this is one thing that it does and that's it. It has many, many different ways you can do it and different benefits.
Absolutely. And I love what you said about transition because it can really help to sort of change from one setting to the next. And also relating to focus, I feel that one of the huge benefits of meditation, and definitely in my life, has been around managing my emotions. And this is directly linked to being focused, to not procrastinate certain activities, to stay with it when we want to be distracted. And managing those emotions has been really, really powerful for me. And coming to journaling, I think it helps, in my case anyway, because I feel different tools help people in different ways to get that clarity. Sure, you can get it from meditation too, but I feel that just writing everything out can help to highlight maybe something that you really want to work on and that you've been neglecting, whether it's in your private life or your professional life, or to gain that precision, as we were talking about, of what our intention actually is and in which direction we want to put our energy and our effort. So yes, I think they're very powerful. They act in different ways, and people are reluctant to some of them because they're a habit to build and because they don't see the immediate results. But I feel that it doesn't take that long to start to see the results of journaling. I was doing the morning pages for a while, as Julia Cameron talks about in The Artist's Way. And I really started to notice, they helped me a lot while I was writing the book. Now I'm in the editing phase, but while I was writing, it really helped me to get back on board with it and to release creativity also, which is a totally different topic. Creativity would be for another day. But yeah, they're excellent tools for so many different things.
As we get close to wrapping up, as someone who spends time on focus and is working on, spends a lot of time. I mean, your business has, it's like me talking about productivity. It's right in the name. What's one rather maybe unconventional or surprising thing or way that you've discovered that you can foster focus? Maybe something people haven't really thought about, or that is rather, it gives you a bit of a quizzical look like, really? That'll work? And you found that it's been beneficial that we haven't already talked about.
Playing, I'd say, because when we start to play, and I mean anything by play a game of cards, or playing with the Rubik's Cube, or playing in any way, shape, or form, it's something we don't allow ourselves enough to do as adults. And the reason that this helps our focus is because we're totally disconnecting from what we want to focus on. It gives our brain the time to process information, to think about it. And when we come back, we're both more energized and more clear-minded. And so actually, if you play, literally playing table tennis, playing any form of play, I think can really help with focus.
Katie, this has been a great conversation. I want to thank you for taking the time to join me today. Where can people keep up with you and focus in on your work?
Thank you for asking. Well, I have my podcast, The Focus Bee Show, where you're also going to be interviewed, Mike, and my Focus Bee website, thefocusbee.com. And then I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter under The Focus Bee or Katie Stoddard. So really, people, it's not very hard to get in touch with me.
Thanks for having a productive conversation with me today, Katie.
Thank you so much, Mike.
And there you have it. Big thanks to Katie for joining me on the program today. You can learn more about what she has to offer at thefocusbee.com. We had a great conversation. I actually have appeared on her podcast as well, which is fantastic. I love it when we can have simpatico kind of conversations. And of course, if you want to kind of check out all the things that we talked about, relevant links, all that sort of stuff, just go to productivityist.com/podcast 439 and you can make that happen. That's it for this episode of A Productive Conversation. Another one is in the books. Thanks so much for taking the time to listen to this program today. And don't forget that we've got a lot more episodes to come. So hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening to this. That way you don't miss a single episode. We've got episodes planned throughout the rest of the year, and I can't wait to bring them to you. Plus, if you subscribe, it's way easier to go back into the archives and find what you're looking for. Conversations that I've had with people like David Allen, Chris Bailey, Cal Newport, Gretchen Rubin, and so many more. Again, thanks so much for taking the time to listen today. Really appreciate it. Until next time, I'm Mike Vardy, the host of A Productive Conversation, reminding you to stop doing productive and start being productive. See you later.